change disturbs our emotions and well-being is called psychological impact, and it includes the following.
Thinking about climate change can be stressful for everyone, especially youth.
For many kids, these thoughts can trigger feelings of anger, grief, resentment, fear, frustration, and being overwhelmed.
Youth suffering from depression and anxiety may be at a disproportionately increased risk of worsening symptoms in the face of climate change.
Youth who are displaced from their homes and or schools due to extreme weather events experience a high level of stress and trauma that could impact them for a very long time.
Hello, and welcome to our fourth There Is No Planet B podcast presented by the Valentine Keystone Lions. Thank you for taking the time to listen in as we partake in discussions surrounding climate change and how it is not only affecting our natural world, but the personal world of teens. My name is Jonathan, and joining us today we have Valerie,
Hello.
Rachel,
Hey.
Samantha,
Hi.
Nigel,
What's poppin'?
and special guest Raul.
Yay!
Glad to join, guys.
Finally, we got you on for an episode. How's it feel?
I'm a little nervous. I don't want to screw this up for you guys.
Pit sweating.
All right.
You're not as bad as Norman. Remember?
Yay. All
Didn't
right.
turn on his mic.
Shout out to Norman.
Yeah, Norman
Miss you,
just
man.
We
Norman
miss
just
you.
started his job, so good luck.
XOXO Gossip Girl.
I'm missing half the group again, actually.
I know. That's so sad.
All right, so for this week's topic, we are going to be discussing climate change and equity. So the first question I'll pose to you is, there are times when certain groups of people or certain communities are not treated the same or don't have access to the same resources. Can you think of an example of how climate change may affect these communities? Example 1. Many people who live in developing countries do not have a reliable access to water. During a drought caused by climate change, this could make things harder for them. Example number 2. People who have more resources can afford solar power, electric cars, and have greater access to recycling. It can be harder for people with less resources to reduce their footprint. So, once again, what are some examples that are facing communities?
So, one of the things that I know for sure, like here in Chicago, I don't know if you guys remember, but there's like a big factory. I think that's near Back of the Yards that was recently shut down. Not recently, I think that was like in 2012. But the people over there were like, well, not, but they were saying that like they can't breathe and they were having difficulty. Like a lot of them had asthma and like things like that because of the factory. And they had been petitioning for years to get it closed, and it took forever, but they finally got it to close. And even then, like, there's still a lot of, like, power plants over there and a lot of, like, I know ComEd is close to Back of the Yards, and I think that, like, we were talking about this actually in my social justice class, and they're saying that, like, lower income houses are closer to the, like, toxic areas that have like radiation and all of that because that's what they can afford, and they usually get the back end of the stick, which isn't how it should be because they should be able to breathe too and drink good water and all of that. So I think it sucks that they're looking at these people and going, oh well, nobody cares, so we'll just throw this in to add to their stress.
Yeah, I agree with what Sam was talking about, and I also kind of think about a lot how if you notice sometimes, like when you go to the grocery store, you see like people taking the bus or walking and stuff, and this kind of maybe contradicts what we're talking about, but they are used to quote unquote like saving the planet. Like that's what they're doing. I mean, a lot of them it's like not their choice to be taking the bus or walking, and it's not ideal at all, especially if like climate change is affecting us. Like it's hot all the time. Like they're gonna have to walk in the heat, or it's snowing in the middle of April. They gotta walk through the snow or take the bus. But there's people like that are so used to. I feel like taking the bus home from groceries or whatever. They're not necessarily impacting or like affecting our world in a negative way as much as other people, like how everybody else drives a car home. So like I feel like the middle class, you could call it, is, or people who actually have their own cars and are driving but can't afford electrical cars, are the ones who are damaging the earth more, even though they're not necessarily trying to, because it's not their fault. It's not like they can just go out and buy a Tesla because that's what they want. Even though Teslas actually, to make them, are like messing up the planet. But I think it kind of depends on the person and like how their situation is. Because, yeah.
So let me pose this statement, and you can agree or disagree. Do you think people with privilege care less about the environment, or do you think people who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, do they care less, or are they put in that position where, like, what? How do you agree or disagree? That
I agree. I completely 100%
Yes.
agree that the more profitable people do not care
They do
because
not.
they're getting their profit from not caring.
Exactly. Yeah.
And because they don't care and they're getting their profit, they'll do whatever to keep them money coming.
Right.
And if something gets in their way, they're just going to pay more money to make it keep going. And I know there are, like, some companies are going to try and go green, but like they're taking it a very long time. Like Amazon says they're going to go green, but that's in 2050. What if like 50% or maybe 25% what we have now is gone and you're going green, quote unquote.
And you waited too long to do it.
And they're waiting too long because they don't want to do it for their company. And I say the same thing with like billionaires. Like they're not taking their time or their money to places that could actually help with climate change, or to those communities who don't have money for it, or to those places that don't have the money to have like the solar panels that we just talked about, or having resources in general. And that also goes along with the health of the people. I recently had a documentary in biology. There were people in Texas who have really bad health and they're getting cancer because they're living by a plastic factory. Because that's all they can afford, because it's literally by a factory who wants to live by a factory. Which also goes into the hands of, if you really want your money so bad and you're killing these people, where are you going to get your money if you keep killing them?
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of what we talked about last week too. Cuz like it's like the dilemma with fossil fuels. Like everybody's like, "Oh, they cost less money and like you could get cheap labor from it." Okay, first of all, you shouldn't be giving cheap labor cuz that's a dangerous job. But that's a talk for another day. But also, we've been saying for years these fossil fuels are killing our planet, and nobody wants to listen because money talks and everything else walks, and it sucks.
From my personal experience, I feel like the lower class or middle lower class usually tends to care more. I know my great grandpa used to like go around the neighborhood collecting cans because they'd like pay you like a couple cents just to bring in a can. And whether it's their choice to be saving the planet or it's just more convenient for them, they're still doing it. And I mean, I think many people have that intention. Like, if you take the bus every day to school instead of driving like a car, and in your mind you're like, okay, well, I have to take the bus, but I am saving the planet. I feel like it gives more like back to yourself. So I think with that mindset, you kind of keep doing it and you push yourself, like for like little things that could help the environment.
I feel like even though the bus is still a vehicle, it still runs on gasoline, I still think it is way more environment safe than having your own car. Because if you have your own car, people are all going individually. But if you're on a bus, there's people going to their spots all at the same time. And they're making a round trip too, which makes it safe instead of you going there and you're spending your gas, and then another person going there spending their gas. They're putting more than a whole bus would. So I think it's better to take the bus, or maybe just not take the bus at all, just walk. But if you have to go the distance, taking the bus would be your best route.
Or even the train. That's just as good.
Right.
If not better because it runs on electricity.
Plus, they're putting solar panel thingies to power the buses and stuff.
Yeah, I was just about to talk about that. Jackie Lou brought that up to me. he was talking about it a few weeks ago. We're doing a presentation for our After School Matters program for the kids about climate change and what the world is doing to slow it down. And that was one of them in Chicago, where they're making the buses go green, which I think is fantastic. Because those buses, I've waited at many a bus stop, and those buses, the exhaust fumes, oh boy, they're bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. As you know, me and my family, we recycle. You know, we separate garbage. We make sure we turn off the lights. You know, we do everything in our household to make sure we conserve energy. Um, but I think, you know, yes, I could do everything possible. I could do my part, but I think it's gonna be a societal thing if we really want to make a change in this climate. You know, everything in terms of what goes on in our society is tied to our politics, right? And you know the laws that they set, um, and our the past presidential administration kind of did away with a lot of good things that we were doing for the environment, um, and it's kind of hurting. We're seeing those fires in California. They lasted for months, um, and this goes back to people with resources. The rich people who lived in Beverly Hills, and they got out of there and they were able to find a new home. And have that. Okay, I'm gonna move my family somewhere else. But there was a lot of people who lost everything in those fires.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people who lost their jobs, had to literally move to another state just because of the situation that happened in California. Same with Australia. Those fires lasted for a long time. Um, and we all have to do our part, but also our government has to do their part in making sure that they protect our earth.
They won't do their part if money gets
Yeah.
to their head. Because there's a lot of hush money going on around with the environment. Because it's all about the economy and not the environment.
Yes.
Even though the environment should have nothing to do with politics.
or money.
Because we live on it.
Exactly.
We should not be profiting off of something that was given to us.
I mean-
Not for something that was just. It's not like we paid for this. It's not like it's ours, quote unquote. I
Or
mean,
we
it's ours
earned it.
collectively. I know this is getting kind of religious, but God kind of gave us, and like, He gave it to us for a reason, to take care of it, not to make money off it. That's selfish.
I mean, we're literally making money off of this bottled water. It's ridiculous. Making money off of water, making money off of fresh air, making money off of existing,
Well,
which nobody should have to pay for.
I think I just read that Nestle, the state of California, is asking Nestle to stop exporting water, and they're gonna fine them. I think like $10,000 a day or $1,000 a day, so whatever the number is. It's pretty small a day if they keep pumping water. What do you think Nestle is like? Are they gonna stop because
No.
they're getting fined $1,000?
Absolutely
Or
not.
is it more of like a business expense?
It's a
Like,
business expense. Let's be real. It's a business expense.
So yeah.
I watched a documentary on that water, the Nestle water, and they're taking it from Maine. Maine's having droughts, and the water that they're taking are from rivers, and they don't have filters for that. And because of that, they're trying to protest to get their water back. And that documentary that I watched came out 5 years ago. They're still fighting for that. And they're still fighting for their fresh water that was theirs, but because Nestle is also owned by this company called Monsanto,
Dun, dun, dun.
I have some pretty strong words about Monsanto, but because they're owned by that big corporation, they also use hush money because they want people, here's your money, get your filters for your water, even though that water is rightfully theirs. And it is also in acts that in the Constitution that if you're on land and people collectively as a town claim that water, that is your water. There are water right acts, and they're going against the law, and they're not obeying it because they have the money to pay the politics to let them slide.
They are drowning out those laws. Eh?
Stop.
No? Okay.
Yeah, you are 100% correct, right? Like these big corporations who have the power to kind of influence legislation, right? Even though, yes, well, I guess there's a battle of like, is water a basic right, right? So you know, or the common sense answer is yes, right? But there's so much influence and legislation that there's no straight answer, right? Coming from our government and other governments around the world, right? Um, so yeah, it can be pretty scary to think about. But hopefully, I know there is a lot of activists, a lot of movement, and trying to get that change, trying to get the reverse, especially with climate change now. A lot more areas experiencing drought. A lot of people who are maybe it wasn't on their radar before. It definitely is now, where they have to start paying attention, or brushing off the people who are filling their back pockets with money. So
Yes, as they should not ignore these people because it's easy for me alone to say, hey, we need to save the environment, but to have a bunch of people rally together, eventually, like, we can't be ignored. It's like that kind of thing.
And unfortunately, because of our former president, there are people out there who believe that it just does not exist.
Oh, don't get me started with that.
And I think that's the most unreasonable argument that I've ever heard.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, this goes back. It's not just the past 4 years, right? This goes back. This has been a problem since what, like the ozone with the aerosol cans. So each administration handles it differently. It's just a matter of how aggressive are they being, and if they're really acknowledging that there's a problem, right? We can say there's something wrong, but like, are we really actively trying to fix the problem, right?
Well, I believe the ozone is getting better, though, because ozone repairs itself. We just need to give it time that it does repair itself. So it is about 75% complete, but we need to give it another 10 years to stop using CFCs from air conditioners, refrigerators, and things like that. But those are kind of also a thing that's kind of like a basic necessity, especially the ACs that we need now because there's climate change.
And it's getting hotter.
Open your windows, people. Open
Bro,
your windows.
No, that doesn't help.
Oh, God. Opening the windows doesn't help at all.
And like Raul said, like how there was fires in California and stuff, and the richer people were able to get out and stuff. Those are the same billionaires who donate $1,000 or $10,000 a corporate, like, to help global whatever.
When they have like $2
And,
billion.
right, and then they're like, "Oh my gosh, look at me! Like I'm such a lifesaver. I'm saving so many people. I donate $1,000, $10,000. Like, yeah, that's still something, but like, you have $2 billion. Like, that's all you can do.
And
Really.
being open about it makes you not be a good person.
It deletes the good deed completely.
If you're like taking selfies and stuff, like, oh, I donated $1,000. Look at me, guys, such a good person. You're not a good person because you're not being humble about it.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, maybe the recognition is good in some cases, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe you're bringing awareness to what you're doing, but I guess it's like a matter of like how you do it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There's so many
Because
other
there's
ways.
a difference. There's a difference between saying, hey, look at me. I donated all of this stuff. I'm such a good person. Like, hyping it up for like days on end, saying like, oh, I'm not a bad person because I did this 5 years ago. Like,
Yeah, not only that, they could use it for reputation repair,
yeah.
which makes it could be true or it could be not, which that shouldn't be happening because it should be true all the time. So it also, climate change is going based off of people's personalities because how people are in their thinking mindset is just how it'll affect others, which affects climate. And what you do affects everything else. It's all about interdependence, about being on to other people, being on to what we have in nature right now, to what we have resources. So because we have that interdependence as we are in the ecosystem, as it should be, we should be relying on each other and not beating down each other for our climate.
Or fighting to see if it's real.
I agree.
So, how will climate change affect people with lower resources over time? Do you think this movement is like picking up momentum, or do you think it's kind of just like a certain group, a big group, maybe posting or like bringing awareness, but it's not really reaching to the community that it needs to, or the group, right? Is it just kind of just like the media is just saying, hey, climate change, putting it in your face, but there's really no like backing to it? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What do you guys think?
I think honestly, like the everyday person or income, working class family, they have a lot of stuff they need to worry about in terms of working, feeding their families,
Keeping the lights on.
keeping the lights on, and a lot of times those issues um, are first, priority, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we really don't think about the environment as a priority because we're too busy with our everyday, you know, stuff that a lot of times we don't think about. Hey, my phone's saying that there's bad air quality. Why is that? There's days where my iPhone says, hey, you know, today you're gonna see bad air quality, and then you go outside, and it's like, well, I can't even see a cloud up. So, you know, so a lot of times it's just not a priority for the
Right.
ordinary person, you know.
Right.
So I think if we start young and teaching the younger generation, hey, we only have a couple more years, and then maybe it's too late. The that kind of message, getting people aware that your everyday actions do affect the climate. So no.
I mean, like I said last week, we should start like having more children books about climate change and like really teaching them young. Because Val also said last week, I remember, she's like, there's probably going to be smarter people who will know how to, or if they start younger, they'll know more about the topic. They'll base off of what we already know and enhance what we know like completely. Like that's crazy to think about how little toddlers our future kids could possibly be changing the world, and we're still in that stage where we could be doing so much more, but there's still so much more to do.
Yeah.
Do you guys have classes, or like do textbooks hit on climate change?
Yes.
Or is it like a little paragraph and then
Well,
No.
Not really. I don't
Yeah,
think so.
in high school there was maybe like a chapter,
so
I
Val
think
and
we
I,
have
and then
like
that's it.
Val and I share a teacher, Mr. Dowling. Hi, Mr. Dowling. I know you're listening. Hello. Thank you for getting us here. He's all about, he talks about the environment a lot. He teaches biology for Val, and he teaches my social justice class. And he's very big on, saving the environment. He even has a bee mask he bought to help the bees, and it says "Be Happy" on it. So he's all about like he kind of helped me, like, not that he helped me realize, like, I knew it was a problem, but thanks to him I'm more passionate about it, and I know more about how big of an issue it actually is. And even if there isn't like a climate change class per se, there should definitely be like an environment class where it's like, hey, this is what's happening, here's what's going on with all these companies, here's why this is a problem, instead of just a paragraph, oh no, and then move on, like a lot of classes do.
But that would be a problem because if we're talking about the resources of the lower class people or considered poor people, some might not have education for school or money for school, not education for school. But they might not have money for education, which means they won't get the proper education, which is where I think we come in, like the people who are willing to volunteer to go out to these groups and educate them. Because if we educate them, they'll definitely know what's going on and how they could contribute or fix it. It's all about having the knowledge because my teacher, Mr. Dowling, he's giving me the knowledge about it, which is making me open my eyes more that I could do more. Because there's more problems, which means there can be more solutions. So I feel like we should go out there and help those who don't really know or are educated or not getting touched on this problem.
Yeah. Or I also think even before high school, like I'm learning quite a bit in high school about saving the earth, but like at my elementary school, it was probably like a chapter or like a unit, like a little lesson. Like, oh, Earth is a thing, or the planets, like the solar system. Like, you do a solar system project. Like, you learn about that kind of stuff. There should be like more. Like, I think I did that in 6th grade one time. I made a little solar system. I kind
Right.
of learned, like, oh no, the Earth is going to die. And then we just kind of moved on and, like, went on to
Yeah.
something else. Like, you should, especially at such a young age, because you never know what high school they're going to go to. You never know if they'll get a chance like we do to learn about the Earth. So you should, all elementary schools should be enhancing that, and then also high schools, but at least at a younger age, no, because then you'll always have that idea.
And more than just a chapter, it needs to be.
More than just a solar system project.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you rather take climate change 101 or statistics?
Climate change 101 for sure, hands down.
I mean, it depends on my major.
Fair enough.
And it's like, it's not even just that. It's just really hard to change pretty much anything because of democracy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As like a good artist once said, democracy is too slow. So you really gotta like, if you wanna like change something, you gotta be.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease. You gotta fight them on it every time.
Yeah, if you really want to change something, you gotta really like come at the people that's in charge
Yeah.
with like hardcore evidence and stuff, or just take their job. If you ask me,
I like that.
I like that one too.
Just take
Yeah.
the job.
I mean-
Revolution. It's a revolution.
I mean, if they want to kill the Earth, they're gonna die eventually too. So you can just
Yep.
take their place.
Dang.
Well-
I'm
Well,
saying,
it's
so
not
you
wrong.
don't like the Earth?
I mean, if they doing this self-destructive path, like
Right.
Well, think about it, right? 2050, right? Are all these promises of like, people have to meet, corporations have to meet goals, and countries, and by 2050, you guys are going to be how old?
Yikes.
Too old.
So
Let's
in
see.
29,
Plus 30, like
and
40, 45.
40.
around
So
for me.
when you're 45, do you think we're going to fulfill these obligations, right?
No.
Like, are we on track, or is it still kind of in the like?
Half of the stuff they promise hasn't started.
I think like that they used to promise of all time, like in the 60s or 70s, 80s. I don't know whenever they did, but I remember, I forget which teacher it was, but they were like, "Oh yeah, we said that we were gonna do all this stuff, and then like the president changed or whatever." You can't wait for a president to change. You just gotta start, or you can't say 2050 like, "Oh, we're gonna do it," because they always say, "Live while you are living right now." You never know if you're gonna. We don't know if the world's gonna explode tomorrow. Well, I guess we might, but we don't really know. We don't really know. Like, you have to start working now. When corporates are saying, or corporate companies are saying, in 2050 we're gonna like go green, like how Amazon was doing, that does not affect me right now whatsoever. I don't care. I could care less if you are talking about 2050. You should be talking about right now, because that's what matters. Like, we need to see improvement towards 2050, not just, oh, we'll start in 2050. Don't worry about it. Just believe us.
I
And then
mean,
they don't.
we were in the Paris Climate Agreement for how long? And what happened? Absolutely nothing. All we know is, the whole thing was, we know it exists. And nobody acted on it. So, like, either step up and do what you say you're going to do as leader of this country, or just stop spitting lies that you want people to hear. It's
gotten
that
to
simple.
the point where I saw on Instagram the other day that Elon Musk is paying somebody I think $2 million or maybe $2 billion if they find a reverse for CO2 in the atmosphere. He is handing out money to find a solution, which is why money is a big part, because people are now going to be like, oh, I'm going to find it, because they want the money. And I don't think that's, heart's in the right place, but I do not think that that is the appropriate kind of.
I mean, at least somebody's going to try now.
Yeah,
I know.
Go ahead.
Sorry. It's not exactly like, is it morally wrong? No. I don't know. It does a good for the world, but a good for and nobody should have to get good out of it other than we all get to live another 50 years. But
then also like people who are not smart enough to like they can in their mind be like, yeah, I'm never gonna find that, or I don't know.
yeah,
They're gonna be like, oh well, that guy will figure it out. I'm just gonna keep leaving my lights on and stop caring and stop recycling because they'll figure it out. They'll get the money and then we'll be okay. Like that should not be the moral. You should be working to fix stuff on your own and just keep going with that. And then if somebody does find the thing, then we'll praise you. But
the thing about it, it's not just like he's giving out money to find a solution. Is that it's more of like a cultural thing. Since climate change is such a low priority on like a lot of people's list, you giving out money to a person that can solve a problem. Yeah. And for people that can solve problems, they have a job again. Yep. And the more people that have jobs, the more culture will change.
Yeah.
Society will change.
For sure.
All right. So climate change, like most things, will not impact everyone equally. Geographically speaking, certain places are more likely to be negatively affected, like coastal areas. Also, people who are poor and have less access to resources and or less ability to move will be more affected by climate change. During Hurricane Katrina, people of color with limited resources were hurt the most by flooding, and many are still dealing with the aftermath of the storm to this day. All right. Well, that was a great discussion today. I think this is our longest podcast yet.
Yay.
This is very interesting. Maybe we'll come back to it
Had
in
a
the
lot
future.
to say.
There's a lot where we could have kind of kept venturing into, but I think we did a good job of answering the question. So yeah, great job, guys.
The longest continuous podcast. Not including when Norman didn't turn on his mic.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I really did enjoy this
You're
conversation.
welcome anytime, sir.
Yes.
Oh, I'll be
here.
back. That's for sure.
Good time. So we have 2 more podcasts left. We'll be bringing this to a close. So everyone, thanks for listening. And with that being said,
Bye.
Adios.
I just want to put in this last point. Boy, it was crispy last night. It was so crispy. I'm telling you. You saying open up the window. The window made it hotter.
Oh my God, it really
all right,
did.
guys. What's the catch line? What's the catchphrase?
Oh, I don't remember.
I just said
Let's Keystone out. Come on.
Oh,
Oh.